What's up, y'all? Welcome to Culture Changers Podcast, episode number 2. Thank you for tuning into episode number 2. And I want to say before, we get started with talking to Fabian here and talking about his experiences and what he's learned, I just want to say thank you for the feedback on episode 1. Honestly, the best part about it was a lot of people got to see Antonio's knowledge. And I think a lot of people were shocked by Antonio's knowledge, which, I personally wasn't, but it was really cool to just get feedback. It was really cool to see that people were able to see him under the spotlight, see him shine, because I know, Antonio is not someone who's usually on the social medias or anything like that, but it was a really, really cool experience for me to be able to show that. And now this podcast with Fabian, I'm really excited because the questions, there's going to be some that are going to be repeats, but I have a lot of different questions because my goal is that every time that you tune into this podcast, you're able to get some new gold nuggets, some new information that one of your fellow colleagues that you might know it from personal experience, but at least is in your age group, 18 to 22, who's going through the same things as you, working a job, working school, relationships, trying to balance all this stuff while being on the top of his game, physically, mentally, and spiritually. So I'm really excited for you guys to get the lessons that Fabian's been able to learn and the lessons that you're going to be able to get from just everyone we have on the podcast. So before we get into the personal development stuff and him talking about his journey, I just want you to do a quick little 1 to 2 minute introduction. Where you go to school, where do you work? What does your life kind of look like?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to start by saying thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to hop on here, just get to know. Obviously, I've known you for a long, long time, but it's nice to be in this setting, surrounded with like all this stuff, and I'm just really happy to be a part of it. But my name's Fabian Delgado. I go to school at Southwestern College, so it's not too far from here. Pretty local. Been in San Diego my whole life. I currently work for the Chula Vista Elementary School District. I'm one of the after-school program coaches, just handling the youth, taking care of the youth, making sure that trying to guide them down the right path the way best I can, and raise them the way I've been raised, just stuff like that. Take care of the kids to make sure they get home to their parents safe, because that's the most important part of it is at the end of the day. But that's pretty much just what's going on with me, and yeah.
And you're transferring, right?
Yeah, transferring to San Marcos. So
it's official?
It's official, yeah.
There you go. All right, brother. Well, the first thing that I want to ask you, and I brought it up on my story when I posted your transformation the other day, what made you want to actually start to level up physically, mentally, and spiritually? Because like I said, you were in, circa 3 to 4 months ago, you were in, good shape, you had good grades, you had, decent mindset and everything. But what made you want to take it to that next level? You just, you seemed like you were cruising.
Yeah. So it all started, I wrote about it a little bit in the caption, but it definitely started with at the beginning of the year, or at the end of last year, I took a trip to Texas with my family for New Year's. And it started small when I asked you about calendar, how like important that is to use and everything. And it was just because I kind of realized I need to organize myself a bit better. Because last semester, fall semester, it was a little unorganized. I got what I had to do. Like I did what I had to do, finish with straight A's, you know what I'm saying? But, I definitely could have done way better, like with organization, with holding myself accountable for small things that I did want to do. But in the beginning, I realized I just needed to take a bigger step, a higher step, and I was able to achieve that just by asking you certain questions to see how I could really get there. And it really just started because I wanted to do it because I wasn't satisfied with the level of how comfortable I was doing what I was doing. Because although I did go to the gym relatively often, more often than some, I did study more often than some, I felt that I could have done it a lot more efficiently and a lot more effectively that would actually, benefit me. And on a spiritual level, I had always, at the beginning of every year, you always have the New Year's resolutions, all that stuff. And I had told myself probably for the past 2 years that I do want to have a higher connection with God, a higher connection with just my spiritual level. And this year I was like, I'm going to take that seriously. And I was 100% convinced of it. I knew I was going to. And so that kind of directed me to why I wanted to start and why I reached out and why I was like, yo, where can you help me and all that stuff. And I knew I was going to be able to get the help I needed. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir. So one thing that you mentioned was you were asking me, before we even started working together one-on-one, you were already asking me questions about the calendar. And the first thing that I want to talk about, and I guess point out, was your level of curiosity was on a different level, meaning that you've always asked questions for the past couple months, and you continue to ask questions, which I think has allowed you to progress very, very fast. And I think a lot of people let their ego get in the way of them asking questions.
Absolutely.
But I want you to give your reason onto why you ask questions and what role has that played in your journey so far.
Yeah, it's played a really important role, more in the sense of where I'm just, at first it is being a little bit afraid because, you ask questions because it's something you don't know. That's the whole purpose of asking the question. But a lot of people mistake not knowing with being a lower level, if that makes sense. Maybe not lower level, but just not having as much knowledge as the person that they're asking, right? And they kind of see it as like a negative view because they don't know as much, but that's the beauty of asking the question. Like, just because you don't know it doesn't mean you can't know it. It just means you don't know it at the time. Mm-hmm. And being able to ask questions about stuff that you don't know is probably one of the biggest like blessings you could have, because you learn stuff that you don't know, and for all you know, it's going to improve you, because it's just 1% better. You move up more. Mm-hmm. So yeah, asking questions has helped a lot because it just provides the framework provides a framework for what I want to know and how I want to get there, but I don't know how to. So you just ask the questions just to get there.
100%. Yeah. And the reason I ask, because like I said, I think you ask more questions than anyone that I've probably ever met. And that's never been a problem. I've always actually encouraged that. Yeah. And I've noticed that it's really helped you like I said, progress very, very quickly, very, very quickly. Now, one of the main questions that you asked me about was reflection. Like you asked me, how do you reflect? Like you asked me about my process, what I thought about it, why I did it and everything. But I want to ask you that question now, for you to give your opinion in front of the camera. The first question about reflection is, I just want you to talk a little bit about your experience with it. How, where has it helped you? How has it helped you? And why did you start doing it in the first place?
Yeah, it's had nothing but benefits for me. Like, absolutely. And it was one of those things that, you don't really think about doing, or you don't realize that you are doing every single day. But taking it to the next level of actually sitting down and asking yourself, like, what could I have done better about today? What was good about today? Because you highlight the pros and the cons. Because if you don't highlight both, you're not gonna move forward. You're really just gonna stay still. Mm-hmm. And yeah, whenever I reflect in the morning, I think it's helped me understand what I could improve on little things. It's not even major things that are things that like I beat myself up over, or things that I try to negate about my day. It's more about like, how can I become better? How can I improve? And really sitting down and reflecting and looking back about what went well about the day before, or went wrong about the day before, helps me move forward. And that's why I've been able to feel like I've taken such a big leap, because if you don't ask yourself questions that you're not going to if you don't ask yourself questions that are meant for improvement, you're just feeling comfortable with what you're doing, And I think that that whole comfortability aspect of my life, I was a little bit too I was too fine with it, and I didn't want to be anymore. I wanted to understand is simple things like waking up in the morning and making my bed. Yeah. I heard somewhere that if you make your bed consistently, it just goes to show just how far you're willing to go, even if it's the small things. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, I'd wake up or not in the beginning, but before I started this whole thing, I'd just wake up and if I made my bed, I made my bed. That's cool. Mm-hmm. But then now it's I thought about it while reflecting early, and I'm like, why don't I make my bed? What's and it's something as small as making my bed, but it's why don't I do that? And I think about it, I write about it, and writing has helped a lot too, I think. And I learned that from you, with just being able to see and reread what my thoughts were at the time. And it gets me to think a lot more about what I'm asking myself and what I want from myself. So definitely just that whole process of asking myself and getting to that new understanding of what I'm doing and why I want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned you would look back on what you did well and what you did wrong also, those pros and cons. So I want you, looking back at what you've done well and what you've done wrong over the past couple months, I want you to say, or I guess tell us, what has been your biggest lesson that you've learned from reflecting? And it could be, and I guess what I'm asking specific is, go back to a reflection session that was just very impactful for you, that you've, taken with you throughout your entire journey.
Definitely, I've had reflections about accountability. And I've talked about this since the beginning with Dame. Our first ever conversation, when he asked me what's one of my biggest things that I wanted to work on, it was just straight up accountability. I do things that I thought were probably to the best of my ability, and they probably weren't. But because no one was telling me that they weren't, or because I wasn't telling myself that, I could be doing better, I was fine with it. And and then the things that I wouldn't do, I wasn't like holding myself accountable for them. So one of the most impactful reflections I had was probably during the cut. I'm not gonna lie, that week was brutal. But I woke up on the first week of the cut of the carb cycle. I woke up on Wednesday and I had no energy. I woke up low levels of energy. You could say it's because of the poor sleep, because of the carbs, whatever it was. I made an excuse for myself, and I didn't wake up early that Wednesday. And I went through that whole Wednesday feeling sluggish, feeling really just low frequency energy. And the next morning, when I wrote about it in my reflection, that night we actually had a call, and that's when I had really asked you about, like, what do you ask yourself in the morning when you wake up? And you had told me like, one of the things you had said was basically like, what can I do to be better today? And so when I woke up that next day, I wrote about it, and I was all like I asked myself, why didn't I wake up in the morning? And I talked about how tired I was. I talked about how, I made all these excuses. And I wrote more in that reflection about how like, because I've done that before. That wasn't the first time I made myself an excuse, And so when I wrote that down, I was like, you just made yourself another excuse not to have gone to the next level. You made it like it was okay to not have gotten up out of bed when you've been doing it for the past week, And so definitely holding myself accountable that day specifically was huge on my reflection, and it's impacted me more to where I need to ask myself those questions on why I'm not doing what I want to be doing or what I should be doing. And that was probably one of the most notable reflections that I've had recently.
Yeah, and I want to really highlight something that you just said right now to make hopefully whoever's listening aware of what you just said, because something that you said was you woke up early on that Wednesday, or you woke up late on that Wednesday. You had a very consistent waking up streak. You woke up late, and then you went that whole day like pretty sluggish, low energy, low frequency. I'm guessing, just less productivity overall, right? I remember us having that call, and it was just you just didn't have the greatest day, right? Yeah. So the next day when you look back on that day, I think I can confidently say that one thing you regret was waking up late.
Oh, 100%.
So that's what I want to talk about, is regret being our guideline. And it's something that I talk about, pretty frequently. And I think it's something that goes over a lot of people's head, right? And it's one thing that so let's just say that you woke up that next morning, and then, you realize that the day before you woke up late. You could have, regret was your guideline. You regretted it because that was your conscience telling you that you needed to fix that. And it was very similar to a conversation that I had with Drake on his podcast, was that his conscience was telling him to wake up earlier. Now yours is on like a single day sample size where you woke up late on one day, you regretted it. And the reason that you regret it is because you're not supposed to repeat it.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Now, and then I think it's just scary that some people who watch, or listen, that they've been committing these same things, whether it's they keep waking up late, or they keep skipping their workouts, right, or they keep eating bad, right, or they keep drinking every weekend, or they keep whatever they keep doing. They keep doing the same mistake over and over and over again. So they might not feel regret anymore. But the fact that you felt regret in that moment was extremely powerful, and you listened to it, and now you're here. Obviously, you produced that amazing transformation, and you killed the carb cycle. So, but I wanted to talk about the carb cycle though, because one thing that I think was really funny was with your journey in specific, you were carb cycling, you had the midterms for school, you had work, you're working still. And then I know you have a trip coming up really soon, but you kind of had to start thinking about that as well. And that was probably the one time that I've given someone a plan, which was you. And I was like, oh man, this is pretty tough. Like I'm kind of feeling like I was like, this is going to be tough. But I always tell myself, like, I want to put more stress on you, because the more stress I give you, and the more stress that you overcome, 100%. The better man that you become, right? Yes. But I want you to talk about, I guess, kind of talk about that process in general, but also what you learned from it. The biggest lesson that you learned from that carb cycle.
Yeah, all those challenges definitely made me feel like a stronger individual, like right from the jump. Like I remember when we had that call, that carb cycle, immediately you told me like, hey, you gave me the layout. You said, we're going to do this. You're going to feel this way. Are you ready? And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm ready. Like, we'll be all good. Like, oh shit, we're like, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'm ready. Like, I'm locked in, whatever. I had the meals I was prepared to eat, everything.
Yeah.
And, you hear about like the side effects of it. One of them that I definitely experienced was that on that Wednesday was that fatigue.
Yeah.
It felt like I got hit by a truck.
Yeah.
And like, I could totally be exaggerating just because it was my own experience, but I did feel tired. Yeah. And so, one of the, that whole carb cycle, and I didn't do nothing about that. I've never done anything like that before. And that definitely felt different after tracking the macros because I was.
Tell them how much carbs you're eating a day?
Yeah, originally at the beginning of the cut, it was I was on a 185 grams protein, 200 grams of carbs, and then 62 grams of fat. Yeah. I'm pretty sure somewhere around there, like ballpark. But at the beginning of the carb cycle, just cut my carbs in half. I had 100 grams of carbs, and like you see the number and it doesn't really seem like nothing like at the time, and it's like, oh, it's just half of them, like I should be straight. And you're explaining to me like, hey, like this is different levels of like fatigue, like we're gonna try and go 4 days and like this and this and that. And so I'm like, yeah, that sounds good, nothing to be worried about. So Monday happens, I kill it. Tuesday happens, I kill it. And then I wake up Wednesday morning and I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I am tired, I'm drained. And I remember texting you, I'm like, dude, I feel the loss of carbs. And so that was definitely a huge like wake up call. I was like, dang, this is what it feels like. This is the real thing. And I felt it, although I felt it physically, it messed with me mentally because I was like, I was not expecting that type of response from my body because I had convinced myself like, oh, I got this, and like I still had it essentially, but I definitely lost some control of it that day. And then the next day I woke up fine, and then the weekend I was able to get back to my 200 carbs. But those 4 days of those 100 carbs, those taught me a lot of discipline. I think that was probably the biggest lesson I learned throughout the entire carb cycle, because like you really can't put in over 100 carbs. If you set yourself that goal, you can't go over it. Because well, this is how I thought of it. Not only does it like destroy you mentally, because then with tracking the carbs, you were tracking the macros, you literally see what you're eating and you have to put it in the app, right? And like I remember when I first started, I'm like, I'm not going to go over the 100 because like even if I saw 99 like left over, it would have pained me. I would have been like, dang, like I went over. But being able to stay disciplined and eat what I have a consistent meal plan, that's what got me. And you had told me that in the beginning too. Just having the same meal at the same time allowed my body to really get used to it. So I was never hungry. I was never lacking energy throughout the time till Wednesday hit. But I was all good. And having that disciplined schedule, that discipline like with my mind, like I'm good, like I'm fine, like it's just for today. And then when Wednesday happened, it's just one more day. And then when Thursday was done, I'm like, all right, I got through it, And then definitely felt good seeing the results on the scale. And one of the things that I had told you was the week before, my weight was kind of going up and down, and we were really stuck at that 154 mark, and I couldn't break it. And you said like, I think it's time to hit this carb cycle and all that. And I was like, yeah, like I think so too. And literally that whole week, like my weight was going 155, 154, 155, back up and down. And so I was getting really discouraged seeing the weight on the scale. And you had told me, don't let that impact you, because, we have a plan, we're going to go through with it, and, it's going to work. And so having that faith in me and in the process and everything was like so supportive. It helped me get through it right there. And it helped me stay disciplined, because then like I said, I was tracking my weight every single day. So whenever I would put it in, I'd see like, oh, it dropped down. I broke 154. I was like, holy shit, like this is thank God. Yeah. And seeing those results was so fulfilling, but it was even more fulfilling because of the discipline and like the strategy to get there. Absolutely. So yeah, discipline was definitely the biggest lesson I learned through that carb cycle.
Yeah, and I think this is going to bring up a very interesting conversation in the sense that in the beginning of this podcast, you mentioned, last quarter you had straight A's. If someone sees your transformation photo, in the first photo, you're really not in the worst shape. You're in pretty good shape. You have your relationships, right? And from the outside looking in, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, you look like you were cruising and doing well. So I want you to talk about your discipline levels. Let's talk, 6 to 8 months ago versus your discipline levels just a month ago. Because the level of discipline that you showed was next level. It was next level for someone to pull that off. So I want you to talk about how your discipline was, like how you view discipline and how it was 6 to 8 months ago versus how it is now.
Total change, total difference maker too. Because probably 6 to 8 months ago when I was starting the fall semester of college, I pretty much like scale the years with like the semesters and stuff because of school. But yeah, like I would go to work, and then I would work out in the morning. I'd go to work, and then I'd do whatever homework I had to do, and that was it. That was all. I'd study if I needed to, whatever. And then like a lot of my free time was just spent on like, and then I don't think like, the cool down's different, but doing an excessive amount, it was just video games or like just chilling, watching YouTube, going on my phone. Social media definitely took up a lot of my time. That was one of the biggest things that I've changed. Well, I changed it for Lent this year. I've restricted my times on all that stuff. But last semester, 6 to 8 months ago, it was just my phone would take up a lot of my time. My screen time was at its peak, video games, like all that stuff. And so my discipline at that time was very lenient, which is that's not what discipline is. It was just super like off
Discipline
the thing.
what you wanted to be disciplined in.
Absolutely. And so I had realized that though, that like I wasn't, I could be way more disciplined in all these other aspects that I wanted to. Like, for example, I think I had told you I wanted to start reading around like last October-ish. And like I literally bought the books, I saw them, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna start reading. I probably got to like 4 chapters through Atomic Habits. That's what it was. And then no discipline. I just stopped. And then I convinced myself like, oh, it's all right. Like I'll pick up the book later. And that was it. I never picked up on it. I finished the year, but the same way I started like 2 months before. And so like even small things like that change in discipline where now like I read very consistently, like I enjoy it, and it totally matches that perspective shift you talk about a lot, and that we all talk about in the community, where it's like you change your viewers. You talk about this about reading, how like, oh, I'm not a reader. Well, obviously, because you don't say you want to read, But if you say like, oh yeah, like, and then people, I think Draco was talking about this, how people talk about like, you read 10 pages a day, they think it's so like, oh my gosh, like you read, like, or if you say you read, they're like, oh my gosh, but then you really dial it down, you scale it down to like the 10 pages we read a day. That's just 10 more than what your average person reads. So staying disciplined in that way now has definitely changed a lot. And just in the other aspects of like tracking macros, I've never thought about doing that. Last year I probably ate like shit, like most people. But this year I really stayed disciplined in eating what I needed to eat, what I was supposed to eat, giving meal plans, giving stuff like, even on Instagram has some of the best meals possible. You just got to actually make it, which is the hardest part, because they look so good, they taste so good, but actually making it is like probably one of the hardest things. So that discipline of having the meal plan, thankfully, I'm so blessed with my family that they were able to help me out through that entire journey. And then they even got hooked on the making the food. Like my sister and my dad thought like protein ice cream was the greatest discovery of all time. So you start making adjustments like that, and it makes it makes the goals way more attainable, because they don't feel like it's such a stretch. They feel like, oh, this is something I want to do. And that comes back to that perspective shift. Like I wanted to read in November. Now I am a reader, And so total change in perspective, but definitely the discipline then was a lot more lenient, which is not what discipline is. And the discipline now is just very, very, very strict. And it really is very strategic, and like, this needs to get done. This needs to get done. This needs to get done. Because if they don't, there's no other option. They have to, So that's definitely changed in my mind.
Yeah. So you mentioned that your discipline is very strict and strategic, and some people will hear that and be like, they'll be scared off just by those words, by strict, right? But what has strict discipline meant to you? Because I like to think of routines as freedom. Genuinely, I always think that a routine is freedom, because I'm getting done what I need to get done to get me one step closer to my goal, so that when the day's over, I look back on my calendar, I got everything completed, I can, go to sleep very, very content, right? Yeah. Very content and happy, which is freedom to me, because I know that if I didn't have that calendar and if I wasn't strict on my disciplines, I would go to sleep and my mind would be racing on all the things that I didn't get done, right? I could have done better on my time here. I could have ate better here. I should have went harder on my workout here. So that's why I think that routine is freedom. I want you to talk about real quick. I was going to ask a different question, but you mentioned the strict and strategic. I don't want that to just get, go. I don't want to just go over that. So what has a strict routine really meant to you though?
Yeah, I think a strict routine, and it really depends on what you're doing at that time in your life. Fortunately for me, I go to school, so it's like I have blocks during my day that I can't avoid. I have to, I have to stay around that routine. But in order to keep that, what strict routine really means to me is pretty much doing the same thing every single day, whether you enjoy it or not. Mm-hmm. And it sounds very very uncomfortable and very hard to hear, but it's really just the reality of it. Because if you're doing the stuff that you have to do, even though you don't want to, you're progressing. Yeah. You're stepping in the right direction, compared to if you do stuff that is probably going to regress you or just keep you off that path. It doesn't benefit you. Mm-hmm. So I think what strict discipline has meant to me is just doing the same thing every single day as consistently as possible. Very consistent, because that's where you make the most progress. But I think strict discipline has just made it makes things non-negotiable. And you talk about the non-negotiables a lot, where what does non-negotiable mean to you? You asked that question the other day, and I really got it stumped me, because you asked people, you say this all the time. I'm sure people ask you all the time, when they DM you, they're like, oh, how do you wake up early? That's probably one of the biggest ones. How do you wake up early? How do you track all that you eat? How all this stuff, they ask you how to do everything. And exactly. It's you know that those are things that there's no other option for, and you've engraved that in your mind, and that's the discipline part, that you've just made it so non-negotiable. Mm-hmm. So I think a big part of discipline is definitely what you consider non-negotiable. And mm-hmm. if you think that waking up early is non-negotiable, then you will actually wake up early all the time. Mm-hmm. But if that's not really a big priority on your non-negotiable list, you're not going to do it. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the big things about why people can't stay too disciplined, because they don't come up with what's non-negotiable. They kind of just let it, what I was 6 to 8 months ago, just lenient, all right, it didn't happen this time. Maybe it'll happen next week. Yep. And that's probably one of the biggest things that could set you back.
So would you say that you switched your priorities? Would you say?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely writing down the priorities help too, mm-hmm. because you really get to see what matters to you. And you get to see what doesn't matter to you. And it starts with the habit list. That habit list that you provided was absolutely gold. I write down all the stuff that I want to do, that I've envisioned myself doing. Mm-hmm. And when I wrote it, I didn't write 30 minutes for video games. That wasn't a priority of mine. I wrote read 10 pages a day. Yep. And that's where the scale is of what's important to you and what's not that important to you. Mm-hmm. If video games were that important to me, I probably would have wrote them on my habit list, but I knew that wasn't gonna progress me in any sort of way. So I knew that one of the one of the things that I needed to get done was read more, track macros, hit a workout. Those need to get done, so those are what get prioritized. Yep. So those are definitely those are definitely all aspects of the discipline part, for sure.
Yep, and I'm glad that I asked that question. I'm glad that got brought up, because about 10 minutes ago or so, you said something along the lines of, when you first start your journey, it looks like it's a stretch, super far away, and it does look like it's super far away. There's some goals that I'm going towards right now that seem super far away. There's probably some goals that you have on your mind in your life that are super far away. Everyone who's watching, everyone who's listening has goals that if they were to fixate on them, they seem so far away they end up quitting, right? But now we're talking about our habits, and we're talking about what we prioritize, right? So if you're listening, and in your case and in my case, all that we can do is prioritize the habits that we think are going to get us one step closer to our goal, understanding that if we, going back to what you said 5 minutes ago now, doing the boring tasks, which sometimes are the habits, bro. Sometimes the habits are very, very boring, and they're monotonous. Yes, you're doing them, they're habitless, and they're non-negotiable, which means you have to do them every single day. Non-negotiable doesn't mean you do them Monday through Friday and then take them off Saturday and Sunday. That's not non-negotiable. That's not non-negotiable. Yeah. But doing these non-negotiable tasks, it makes something that looks like a stretch just seem like a little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer. And then as you prioritize these new habits that you've been able to prioritize, the anxiety also goes away, because it seems like the goal is closer and closer and closer. And we talked about this on Monday, right? When a goal, the farther that a goal is, the more anxious it makes you. Yes. Because it's that gap. It's that gap, right? So for you, when you're first starting this cut, and we're talking about you getting shredded, we're talking about you getting to that 150, 151, it seems so far away. It's a goal that doesn't, in your mind at that point, doesn't even seem realistic. Right. But then you start prioritizing these small habits, whether it's the macros, the reading, the waking up early, the working out. And you mentioned waking up early and reading, right? Someone's like, how does that pertain to fitness, it's discipline, motherfucker. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's small disciplines that if I read every day and if I work out every day and if I wake up early every single day, I check my macros every single day, I know it's going to get me one step closer to any goal that I get to.
100%.
It's that confidence, right?
Yeah.
Has habits helped with your confidence? I want to talk about that.
Oh, 1,000%. And like piggybacking off what you're saying, it just lays the foundation. If you don't have, if you're so focused on worrying about, oh, do I have time for the gym today? And that's not a non-negotiable of yours. That's literally like using useful time to try and make like your thoughts like based on the gym, like as, oh, I should go today. Like I should. If you change it to I need to go today, that's already in your mind. It's already in your schedule. You're going to make it a part of your life and a part of your routine. So freeing up that time and that like thinking of, oh, should I go to the gym? Now you have all that time to focus on that long-term goal you were talking about. And like, I think habits have helped me like build a foundation, like a very strong foundation of what needs to get done and what's going to keep progressing me forward. Because, you know, you write down what's important to you, like we said, like for the habits, and you realize what's really important to you and what matters to you. And once you get all those things done, or once you already like instilled those in your daily like routine, you already know they're going to get done. So it gives you so much more time to focus on something else that you want to do and allow you to reach those further goals, allow you to think, to talk to other people, allow you to do all these other things, because you don't have to worry about the foundation you've already built and set for yourself. It's definitely, like you said, it's not like they're boring. Some of them are boring. And some days you're just going to be like, oh no, I did it like the past month, every single day. Like I'm gonna like chill today. And is that day that'll throw you off your routine, because all that whole rhythm that you just built, that whole rhythm, everything of the foundations that you've perfected, and you throw it off of a day, like, you know, you threw off the rhythm. Now you got to hop back on the horse and you got to keep like treading forward. But
It's hard to get back on.
it is absolutely hard to get back on. So I think habits have helped me. Habits have helped me realize how much time I really do have when I'm not worrying about the stuff that I already want to get done. You know, so definitely helped me in that aspect for sure.
And I think one thing that was great that you said in the beginning of that whole thing was that you changed your perspective from, you know, thinking about the things that you had to do or what you wanted to do to this is what I need to do.
Yes.
You change in that simple little like word pattern, I guess, or that, you know, nomenclature, whatever you want to call it. Changing it to I need to do this was massive for you. And what that is that's a thought pattern.
Yeah.
Right. So now I want to talk about thoughts, because thoughts are something that's super, super interesting to me personally. And it's something that I try and get all of you guys to think differently.
Yeah.
I want you to be able to think for yourself, critically think, keep tabs on your thoughts when things are going great, when things are going bad, whatever it may be, because that's when you learn your lessons, right? And you create your reality through your thoughts. And I know that you understand that now.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk about, I guess, more your thought patterns, but in specific, the way that you used to think about habits, working out, school, macros, all these things. How did you used to think about it back then versus how do you think about these things now?
Yeah, I think I used to think about everything that I do now consistently and pretty much religiously at this point is I used to think of them as kind of nonchalant. Like I'd go to the gym because, you know, I like going to the gym. I still enjoy going to the gym. And at 6 to 8 months ago, I still enjoyed going to the gym. Yeah. But I didn't enjoy it the way I do now, where it's like I'm pushing myself every single day. It was like more of a change in my mind and my thought pattern of it. It was like I'm going today not because I have to go to the gym. I'm doing it to better myself. I'm doing it to improve on myself physically, like mentally. It's nice. It's relieving for me. That's how I perceive the gym. And I think that my thought patterns have changed where I view negative situations in a more positive light. And that's definitely come with, becoming spiritually closer to God. It's come from being able to communicate with people like you and people like in the Culture Changers group chat, everything. Because you change a negative situation to a positive situation, and it just becomes positive. It's not negative anymore. You just view those accolades. And I think that's what the difference is now. It's that like of 6 to 8 months ago, accolades or challenges to me were challenges and accolades, and they were like setbacks. They were like, oh, like this is coming up, like damn it. And I didn't want them to come up. I was scared of those events, whether it was a test, whether it was like, oh, like if me and my friends decided we're gonna try and PR today, like I'd be like nervous or whatever about it in the gym, stuff like that. More specifically with the test stuff, but I would approach those things negatively. And so my thought pattern definitely shifted at the beginning of this year, where like I think of those things as I appreciate being able to overcome those things. Like a hard test. Like yeah, I can't think of it as hard. I think of it. I walk in there and I'm like, I'm about to ace this bitch. Like yeah, exactly. So it's like it's just that change of that thought change of being more positive about the situations I used to think were negative. So that's definitely been one of the biggest changes in my thought patterns.
That's very, very fire. And I want to talk about, so I was going to ask, what does personal development mean to you? But I think throughout the whole podcast, you've basically been able to express it through all the different questions that we've talked about. But I want you to talk about now, you just answered the question for the school part, but I was going to ask, how have you noticed, your school, your relationships, and your friendships benefit as a result of you taking on this personal development journey? Because I think one of the most beautiful things with you and with everybody that I work with and everyone that we get to talk with in our community and our culture is that we really prioritize like helping our family with small things, going out of our way to help a significant other, whatever it may be. And I want you to talk about how your relationships have really benefited and your school. You already answered the schoolwork one, being like more confident, but how have your relationships benefited as a result of you working on yourself?
Yeah, they've improved massively. It's like you see someone, it's the whole, Leo says this all the time. It's like, show me your friends and I'll show you like your future, right? And like, if you, ever since being surrounded by so many people that want to win, that want to improve their lives, that want to be better, and not only that for themselves, but they encourage others to do so, it's made me want to do it. And so me doing it around my house and more specifically impacting my relationship with my family, they felt more encouraged to want to eat healthy. They felt more encouraged to want to work out. And it's so uplifting seeing those things and seeing them accomplish what they want to accomplish, because like deep down, like, they could do it. Like they're so capable of everything. Like they're my family. Like I believe in them. I love them. They've given me the world. And so me being able to, and it's definitely, I like to see it as like, it's out of respect for like my parents and everything. Me becoming the best version of myself that I could possibly be is hopefully, and I'm sure it is amazing for them to be able to witness and be able to feel proud of. I want to be a man that my dad is proud of. I want to be a man that my mom is proud of. I want to be a man that my sister looks up to and is proud of, And so being able to work on myself, work on my personal development, not only physically but mentally as well, has definitely changed like the attitude around the house. Not that it was ever negative before, but it's more of just like a brighter, like everyone's working. Like I come home from school and everyone's working out.
Yeah.
I come home from school or from work or school on a Monday and my dad's getting the meals prepared for my mom and my sister. And it's like, those are so uplifting. And it started like in the beginning where I was like making the Greek yogurt and cereal or whatever. And my dad's like, what are you making? And I'm like, oh, like, look, like try it. So he tried it, thinks it's cool. And then consistently doing that, like the first 3 weeks, it was like, oh, okay, he's doing it. And then he started joining. He started asking me like, oh, like, or he started sending me recipes on Instagram. That's what he started doing.
My mom does that.
Yeah.
My mom always sends recipes.
Yeah. So he started sending them to me. I'm like, oh, that's good. And he's like, we should try it. And I'm like, oh, you want to make it? And it built that bond where I'm able to go in the kitchen and make food with my dad. And it's cool. We're just listening to music, making food, and then like it's less of a stress for them to worry about in the week. So now they're able to have more time to focus on working out. It's this domino effect, but it's a domino effect of all these positive reactions because of everything that. And it originated with me just, yeah, exactly. And just wanting to help. And although I didn't like literally hands-on be like, all right, we're going to start like this meal plan. We're going to start working out like this and that. Just me presenting myself in that manner and me going out there after reading a book and saying some like crazy stuff that I learned in the book, acting like I wrote it. Like it's funny. It's cool. Cause then they're like, oh wow, like he's taking it seriously, or he's like, oh, he's really about this.
Yeah.
And so them seeing that improvement, them hopefully being inspired that improvement, it's all love. I appreciate it so much because it just makes me happy being able to help out my family, help out others in general. So that stuff's super cool. But yeah.
Yeah, bro. I mean, I could tell just from, the stories that you've told me, but what you just shared right now, that you've been able to make like a profound impact on your family, which is obviously a beautiful, beautiful thing. But also you've been able to make a profound impact on just other people, whether it's within our community and they tell me behind the scenes, like, Fabian's killing it here. Fabian checked in on me here. Like people will tell me like when someone, they don't tell me exactly what you say, but they're like, yo, like I appreciate Fabian checking in on me. Like they just say that. And I know you didn't tell me like, yo, I'm gonna go check in on fill in the blank, but you would just do it. You would just go out of your way and check on other people, not being told to do so because it's something that you enjoyed doing. It's something that made you feel good. And that's something that our culture lacks so much. is that no one cares about anybody but themselves.
Exactly.
But people don't understand that when you start to view others in a positive light and you start to try and help people, then other people are going to view you in a positive light and other people are going to try and help you.
Yeah.
That's all that is. Yeah. But the other beautiful thing, the beautiful lesson that you just said right there, that I hope everyone gets, I hope every single person gets, is that your people, they will fail to listen to you, but they will not fail to emulate you. I bet that in the beginning, when you started that journey, if you were to tell, like, for example, you didn't give your parents, like, yo, we're going to do this meal plan. Yeah, you're going to work out here. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. You didn't say any of that. Yeah, you didn't say any of that. You just led by example. And from you leading by example, they began to emulate you. 100%. And now they've benefited their lives physically. And I bet it's helped them with their, mental life, their spiritual life, their job, whatever it may be. And I can say from my experience as well that since I started taking this journey seriously, last year, in the beginning of last year, I've had people want to ask me how I did it and how I've been able to do it, and emulating me. And emulating you is not like a copycat, like blah, blah. Yeah. No, it's out of respect. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. So now there's a different level of respect between you and your family. There's a different level of respect between me and your relationship with your friends, right? Like, I'm thinking of someone in specific who comes to our Sunday workouts a good amount of times now, and he gives you a lot of respect, man, a lot of credit for helping him get on his journey. And respect is what builds true brotherhoods.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why there's so little brotherhoods, right? Like, brotherhoods are so uncommon because no one respects each other. Mm-hmm. But I can say that I respect you because you work your ass off. I'm guessing you respect me because I work my ass off. And your family respects you, and now you have these other people in your life, friends from high school, friends that you've just met the last couple of months that respect you because you work your ass off. Mm-hmm. But people think that the respect comes without the work.
Exactly.
You got to do the work.
That. Yeah, you don't get that enough. There's no respect. Respect is earned. It's not given. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people forget, and a lot of people don't even realize, because they kind of just start their relationships, or not relationships as in friendships, like couples, whatever it is, right? With family, anything. And they just go right off the bat. It's immediately assumed that you need to have respect for that person. Like, you don't need to have anything. But if you go in there in a negative way and kind of portray yourself in more of it depends on the demeanor you put out there. Mm-hmm. But if you go and treat people with respect, you're going to get respect in return. You treat people the way you want to be treated, the golden rule from elementary school or whatever, right? But a lot of people really do forget that, because whether they build up this shield to try and hide their true emotions or how they really feel about a situation, or whether they're trying to act a different way because they want a different reaction from people, you just got to be real, and you need to do it in a positive manner, and you'll really get positive things in return. And that's just how the universe works. You get what you put in.
Yep. 100%. I guess the last thing that I want to talk about, the last question, is I want you to go back right now in your head. I want you to go back to a time when you had probably, your lowest level of self-confidence. You're going through a difficult time. You're going through a time of, low self-trust, low self-belief, whenever this time was. And I want you to think about one thing you would tell that former version of yourself, that person that had no confidence, that person that had no trust, that person that didn't do the work on himself. And now you're here. Obviously, job's not finished. We understand that, but you are obviously in a very elevated state. You are building the 10.0 Fabian, right? You're in that process. I want you to go back in your head to a time where you really struggled and think, what would I tell that person right now?
Yeah, I think I'd probably look back on those times, and I think one of the biggest things I would tell myself at that time would be just to start. Really just to start a change, a lot of people, whether it's a lot of people listening or just a lot of people in general, everyone understands that you have your flaws in life. You realize what you do well, what you don't do well. And I think a lot of people focus too much on what they don't do well, and it just starts beating them up. It starts eating them up inside. And that's just, that's not a good thing. It's just going to result in negativity. So I think, and we all know what we need to do to get better. There's no such thing as the perfect person. It's like Kobe's big thing was he strove for perfection because he knew he would never reach it. But the point of it is he's striving for it every single day, knowing he won't reach it, but he's still working his ass off, Mm-hmm. And it's because all that happens because he started. And whether that's starting, just start. You pick something that you really want to improve on. You pick something that, if you're not confident in something, you start building that confidence, whether we're doing whatever you need to do to build that confidence. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the biggest things I would tell myself back before, back in the past, the only thing I would tell myself back then would be just to start, because you're not going to get anywhere just staying still. You're not going to get anywhere just being stagnant. So I would definitely, one of the biggest things I'd tell myself with low confidence, even anyone with low confidence, low self-esteem, or just feeling at a low, you got to start. Because once you start stacking those wins, and once you start really like being able to show up for yourself, you really start getting that everything falls into place, but it doesn't fall into place until you start. So 100%, and it equals just great results, but you need to start those things. So that's probably one of the biggest things I'd emphasize.
Yeah, bro. Well, we've already been on here for 45 minutes. That's what I wanted the cap to be at. So with that being said, bro, I appreciate you taking the time to, get on the podcast today. I think I'm very, very proud of what you've done, bro. I mean, in just such a short period of time, you've been able to grow onto levels that I don't think anybody expected to see. I mean, if someone was to have a conversation with you in December of 2023 and then have a conversation with you now, they'd be like a completely different person, right? And it's just so beautiful. Like, I love how you are the example of how much someone can change if they make such an intentional effort to change. And I remember one of our first conversations within the first week or two of working together, it was like, I want to be more intentional. And something that I've noticed with you is being intentional with your schoolwork, with your time, with your relationships, with your family, I know with your girlfriend as well, and just your macros, your working out, reaching out to other people, trying to be more active in the community. Everything that you do is just a whole different level of intentionality. It's beautiful, bro. I'm very, very proud of you. I'm very excited to see what you get done in the next week, month, years. I know that we're going to have a strong brotherhood for years to come. Absolutely. And we're going to keep building, us, but with also the community, with the culture changers and our whole generation. We got a lot of people that we want to help. Absolutely. We've talked about it. And I'm just proud of you, bro. Appreciate your time.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you for tuning in, y'all. If you know Fabian or if you don't know Fabian, share his knowledge because he's clearly got some knowledge. I'm proud of the boy. I'll catch you guys on episode 3 with the next culture changer. I love y'all.